Did you know a bunch of women flew before the Wright brothers?
Before the Wright brothers?
That's right. While the Wright brothers made the first flight of an airplane the way we think of them today in 1903, technology like hot air balloons, dirigibles, and gliders had already been around for years, even centuries. Hello, my name is Becca.
And I'm Candy.
And these are 5 women who flew before the Wright brothers. This list isn't in any particular order, and it isn't definitive. There are other pioneering women who could have made the list, and we hope you go out and learn about them too.
All right, first we got Aida de Acosta. The first woman to pilot a powered aircraft solo, was also the first American woman and the first Latina. A first-generation American born in New Jersey to wealthy parents from Spain and Cuba, Aida de Acosta was in France as a teenager when Brazilian aviation pioneer Alberto Santos Dumont was perfecting his 9th airship, La Baladeuse. Like I said, her parents were rich and had a reputation to keep, so for her to fly was considered unseemly. But she said, "I'll do what I want." And so at the age of 19, she hopped into the pilot seat with Alberto's permission and took off to the outskirts of Paris all alone in the dirigible. Santos Dumont rode a bicycle below her, hollering instructions up to her. She was the only person Santos Dumont ever let fly his aircraft. Otherwise, he kept that duty to himself his entire life. Aida's parents were scandalized and forbade her from telling people that she'd flown in an aircraft out of fear that no respectable man would marry a woman who'd do such a thing.
But French woman Sophie Blanchard, our second female flyer, was married and flew at the same time. In 1804, almost 100 years before Aida de Acosta, Blanchard made her first ascent. The next year, she made her first solo flight. She wasn't the first woman to do either. Those records belong to Marie Elizabeth Thibault and Jean Labrosse. 2 women we're not going to talk about in this video, but I hope you look them up on your own. And it doesn't mean Sophie was any less bold. Her husband was also a famous balloonist, but when he died in 1809, Sophie kept the family business going. She made ascents in her intricately decorated balloons, launching fireworks from the skies or taking up other daredevils who jumped from her balloon basket and rode early parachutes back to the ground. People didn't have awesome list videos on YouTube to watch back then. Instead, they watched people fling themselves out of balloons. She was so popular that Napoleon himself made her the chief air minister of ballooning, which was a flat-out military position. Her career could be a list of its own, but it came to an end in 1819 when she was killed when her balloon caught on fire. Ballooning was extremely dangerous, and she was not the only early aviator who died on the job.
The third woman on today's list is English pilot Margaret Graham. She asks, why just have one woman fly a balloon when you can have a bunch of women fly a balloon? In 1826, she made a solo ascent, becoming the first British woman to do so. She had real marketing savvy and got friendly with newspaper publishers, which allowed her to get the dramatic description she wrote of her flights printed and out to the public, who ate it up. She loved helping other women fly. Several of her ascents were made with all-female groups, and once her daughters were old enough, they went up in the balloons with her as well. Ballooning was a tough business, though, and the family was haunted by debt for years. When Margaret died, she was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave, and her legacy largely forgotten as aviation histories chose to focus on male accomplishments. In 2022, a successful fundraiser made enough to furnish her grave with a headstone appropriate for such an amazing lady.
Lots of balloons today. Would you go up in the hot air balloon, Candy?
I would, but I would be very terrified. How about you, Becca?
It is on my aviation to-do list after skydiving.
No. I'm just like, no.
But you know, the next story on our list goes back before balloons. As a museum about aviation and space exploration history, we feel it's important to pay attention to things like legends and folktales involving flight. And the world's cultures are filled with stories of women with the ability to fly. In China, for example, we get the story of Chang'e. Her husband had an elixir that would grant him immortality, and he asked her to hold it while he went hunting. The husband's apprentice broke into Chang'e's house while she was alone and threatened to take it from her by force. So she drank it and flew up into the heavens, where she became the goddess of the moon. Chang'e was referenced by Mission Control to the Apollo 11 crew during the first human moon landing, and the China National Space Administration calls their lunar lander Chang'e in honor of her.
An ancient legend says a beautiful Chinese girl called Chang'e has been living there for 4,000 years. You might also look for her companion, a large Chinese rabbit. The name of the rabbit is not reported.
Okay, we'll keep a close eye for the bunny girl.
Roger.
Anthropologist Serenity Young has studied these mythical women and wrote about them in her book, Women Who Fly, Goddesses, Witches, Mystics, and Other Airborne Females. She points out that Chang'e's story is like many tales of legendary women who learned how to fly in order to flee violence at the hands of men or to otherwise escape the expectation patriarchal societies placed on them.
Okay, wrapping up today's list, Mary Myers, better known as Carlotta, the Lady Aeronaut. Sort of like an early superhero, she decided the name Mary was too boring for someone who would do something wild like fly in a balloon. Mary Myers came up with the name Carlotta, the Lady Aeronaut, to sound more adventurous and daring and would make flights and flamboyant costumes to match. Her husband was a pilot and aerospace engineer, designing new and improved balloons that the two would fly. To keep up with his wife's personality, he took on the stage name of the Professor. She traveled the United States making flights before massive crowds, making more flights than all the other historical women we've talked about today combined. It's believed that when she retired, she actually made more flights than anyone anywhere up to then. And that's not her only record. She was the first to reach 20,000 feet, which is 5,000 feet higher than Mount Rainier, and basically as high as you can go without an oxygen tank. She also held a patent for a balloon steering device she invented. Mary loved flight so much that she named her daughter Ariel, not like the mermaid, but like going up in the air.
Ooh, if I had a kid, I would name them like Aileron or Saturn V rocket.
I would just stick to Ariel, but your choices are nice. Hope y'all enjoyed today's list. What other women in aviation do you think should get a moment in the spotlight? Let us know in the comments.
And while you're at it, share your ideas for future lists. We're always curious about what makes you curious. So you in for that hot air balloon ride?
For sure, I'd love to go. Let's go.